The problem with doing this is the Gladius is so damn fast at acceleration. When I get close to him, I'm about to ram him every time.
Yeah, that procedural damage generation. I think it's just
Hey, what's up, Calyx?
Toys on me.
Here, and oh wow, thank you, Supreme Tokyo, for the enthusiasm at 11 a.m. If I'm a little at a loss for the exact words I'm looking for or rambling a bit, it's just because did not sleep at all last night, so I've been up quite a long time. I know you know the feeling. So I'd like to kind of go over two problems with how ships fly, and this I'm gonna do this where it's pretty much irrefutable evidence of it, so don't worry about that. But I'm not gonna tell you how to make what to change and da 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 like a lot of people are doing, Calyx. And by the way, happy 4th of July tomorrow. And yeah, I kind of been saving this one for for when somebody competent comes in and starts looking at the flight mechanic again. And hey, you said that was you, so here we go. I and several other people have pointed out these two problems I'm going to show a few times in the past, especially this first one. And basically, I brought it up. It was painfully obvious when the Gladius came out in the first PTU it was in. I mean, I had put in on day 1 and day 2 and day 5 and day 7. Even mentioned this in a video within the first few days of having flown it. I think on the second day, I had been up about, many hours. I don't even remember how long, but many hours flying it, and just sort of did a preview and talked about this exact same problem then. And same problem exists today, and I do have most of the smaller ships out now. Not all of them. So I won't say this affects all of them to the degree that it can potentially show up on the Gladius at times. But it definitely is in there. Now, I don't know what's causing this. I imagine, because I've never seen how the IFCF works, IFCS, that it has something to do in there. Just with how the three primary axes, pitch, roll, and yaw are interacting with each other. But I'm not sure why. I'm relatively confident. It has nothing to do with center of mass, center of thrust, thruster values. It's just in the math somewhere else. So, since we're already rambling, we've got our entities, vehicles, implementations, XML, Gladius. We're going to use the Gladius because it shows up pretty spectacularly in this ship. We're at the bottom, we are at our movement parameters at our spaceship, and I don't want you to cringe a lot, but I'm going to exacerbate the problem here. Here I go, tired and tripping over my own words. We have our maximum angular velocity, and this is noted in how many degrees of second of angular velocity change we can have on our three primary axes: pitch, roll, and yaw. They're set to 90, 120, and 90 degrees a second. We're going to up those by 5 times, so 600 and 450. And I know you're thinking, well, here we go changing things, but really, we're just changing how fast the ship can spin on its three primary axes. We're not changing anything else. So what we're really showing here is, instead of something being very subtle problems where only people very detail oriented and kind of have played a lot of games at the high level and used to going back and looking at their own gameplay, kind of objectively may pick up with this, to something that's just blatantly obvious visually. And we're going to go over 2 main problems, and then maybe have some other stuff that's cropped up. So here we go. We put these values in, we've changed it. We're going to close that. We're going to run our handy little script builder. It's going to do its thing, and we are up and running. You can see we have, I run a full CH HOTAS, everything merged to one device. So we have, you know, our primary X and Y, our throttle. We have our vertical and horizontal strafing, our throttle, and our longitudinal. That's 4-back strafing, is both on the Z-axis, and we have, you know, roll, and our toe brakes, which are doing nothing more than activating space brake. So we're gonna launch the game. We're going to see how good the drivers want to play with everything today. Star Citizen's a bit iffy when it comes to graphics drivers and recording at times, which is odd. I was doing this in XSplit and gave up because of problems. Problems in OBS also, which is very odd on both, because just literally yesterday I did a Crysis 2 and Crysis 3 playthrough, no problems whatsoever. But both CryEngine 3 games, Crysis 2 was the first CryEngine 3 game. But you pull it into, you know, CryEngine 3 Arena Commander, and, you know, we derp. So here we are. We'll cut VSync off. There we go. Get that frame rate up a little bit. It looks pretty good. So we're going to launch in a Gladius. And as I was saying before, affects other ships to a much smaller degree. What the hell, Broken Moon. But really shows up on the Gladius, especially this first problem. Well, really both of them. And in some values too. I hate to keep reiterating, but you know, this does show up as a problem on the stock Gladius, but this really kind of pushes it over the edge. So here we have our Gladius. You know, nothing special. As you can see, turns much faster. 450 degrees a second on pitch and yaw, our two primary axes. And you can see right here, here's a problem, Calyx. And this isn't actually even the problem I was going to bring up first. So we've added pitch and yaw. I've let go. You can see I've let go. You know, look at our joystick tester up here, reading our DirectX input. My joystick is in the middle, but it took that long to stop, really. And to point out, I should have and didn't. All the other values for the Gladius are stock. So what does that mean? That means our maximum angular acceleration for all three major axes is 720 degrees a second, which means the craft is easily able to hit its maximum rotational velocities, you know, or angular velocities in a second. It greatly exceeds what we've put in. So let's go back to the main point I was gonna point out. You can see a little drift. That's not perfectly, actually. If I were to cut this up to double this, even 1080, or you know, even further, 1440, yeah, 1440, you would actually see a lot of wobble in the roll axis, which should not be there. Very little, even at 550. Shows up, you know, a few pixels shifting at 120. I know that sounds not like it's not a major deal in the world, but it actually is, because, you know, it's inaccurate. So we're gonna throw in max roll. We're gonna pull max pitch. We're gonna put in max yaw. So we are, as you can see on our joystick tester, we are all the way over. And here's an issue. Can you see the issue? Maybe you can't. Right now we're pulling nothing but almost pure pitch, very little yaw, and a little roll, no roll. A little roll the opposite direction. Our roll is going backwards, back and forth. And this very easily replicated with how I'm doing it, but it actually does come into play on some of the instantaneous movements you make when you're really throwing the 6 around and hitting max throw, which isn't often, but it does happen. So I'm going to let go. You can see I've let go. I have long since let go. Why in the blue hell, Helix, is this thing not slowed down yet? Let's go at this from a different point of view. So we're outside the ship. And you know what? We're gonna uncouple our view from our craft. We're gonna pull pure pitch. We're gonna let go. Bam. You know, like I pointed out, you know, we still have 720 degrees a second of angular velocity acceleration, but we're only pulling 450 in pitch and yaw and 600 in roll. So we can easily max these things out, let go, and stop. We can max it out, let go, we stop. Now watch. We're going to pull all 3 max. We let go. Where was the stop? And even then, look at the drift. Let's go again. And, you know, going to the other point, we're going between having some roll, no roll, some yaw, no yaw, but keeping pitch. And I'd like to point out, this is not a power issue. Okay, you should know the power plant is putting out 1,000,000 power a second. Okay, we're not using that. It's not an overheating issue in that the thrusters are overheating and whatever. We can even increase thruster power. I'm now holding afterburner, even though you don't get a visual reference. It's easy to see. No change. I'm letting go. Calyx, why are we taking this long to stop? That is an issue. Overshooting, that is an issue. It has happened since day one of the Gladius, and it's not only the Gladius's problem, but it shows up just tremendously in the Gladius. Look what happens. Pitch plus yaw, no roll. The yaw is not in. It is barely in. We bled off. We're still going. Yaw plus roll. Where's the roll? Calyx, where's my roll? Yeah, come on, Calyx. We let off. Still going. How about pitch and roll the other way? Oh, now look, we actually had some roll for the first 2 to 3 rotations. I'll say 3 rotations. Well, where did it go? We have no roll, Calyx. Very little. That's not... Here's the thing. The IFCS is not doing what I'm requesting. That is an issue. I don't care what it thinks, you know, the balance between thrusts in one direction and another is. It's not doing what I am saying. That is a problem. It needs to do what I request, or at least attempt it, which is what it's not doing. You also get into an issue where, you know, it's not only the roll that can flip in and out. You get into situations where sometimes the pitch will go positive, then negative, then positive, then negative. And it seems to me it's whatever it's decided the dominant axis is. Most of the time it'll be pitch, just because it's such a pitch. Always pitch, you know. Even though it's a space game, just from having been in flight sims so much, you know, you preference pitch over all other controls, but it can happen when y'all apparently becomes, you know, quote unquote primary or the most important. I don't know if there's any terminology there. Like I said, starting off, I've never seen your IFCS code, and you know, we just see the values on our end. Now, I'd like to point out something since you're going through this. You can see we've really jacked the rates by 5 times. However, one of my alternate bindings cuts the pitch and yaw sensitivity 20 times. 20 times what the standard is. And CH HOTAS, you know, running just bare straight 0 to 100%, so you know 0 to 65,535. No curves, no curves in the game. The game is at default. And I'd like to point out a problem common to many joystick games, and you know I'm not gonna soapbox this unless I have to, Calyx, but even with these jacked up speeds, you can kind of demonstrate pretty easily. You know, we're working with the maximum velocities, but you need to go back, Calyx, and set a minimum velocity. And Calyx, it needs to be very low, as in a few degrees a second change, no more than a few degrees a second. And literally it helps tremendously in your finite accuracy by having a shift at a pixel by pixel level, very slow. And obviously it's always pixel by pixel, but you know what I'm saying, a very slow pixel shift. And you can see, you know, with this jacked up, you would never have any fine aiming, ESP or not, you know, cutting that down inside a target box. But even at this 20 degree level, or cutting this down by a factor of 20, you could easily find some situations at long range, or where you were really wanting to line up just a small shot, it would still be a little too much. So, you know, I don't know, I'm sure you have a value somewhere. If not, you could pretty easily put one in, but please, Calyx, set a minimum velocity. And that's not just ship, that's the look mechanic, you know, first person shooter also. And I know they don't go hand in hand. I've seen the values. we both know, I've seen them. But definitely put in a minimum. Moving forward, we talked about this a little bit one day. What you could do short term, long term, to help all joystick and controller players, fundamental, just small things, is you know, I spent, you know, we talked about it, I spent years building profiles for many things, many input devices in many games, and they were popular, suffice to say. And one of the things you learn is not all hardware works the same. There is no such thing as a pure, honest one-to-one input-output. Not device, not any mouse, not any joystick, not any firmware, not any drivers. There's just it doesn't exist. Okay, no matter what anybody says. And people themselves can, you know, tell you I want one-to-one until they're blue in the face, and yet what they really have is slightly positive or slightly negative. So when it comes to joysticks, from setting up games, you know, so many profiles over the years, and RC, I've flown RC for 22 years now. I'm in my 22nd year. Setting up transmitters, you know, electronically, the programs, and then setting up the physical throws, which are also different. You want different things, you know, different input output to do different things. And when you get into the faster ships, which has a lot to do with, you know, shooter games and flying, you know, faster dogfighting ships, you know, whether we're shooting or flying, you want positive exponential at some point, once you get fast enough. And with ships, this is very true. You would do very well to change the default from a 1-to-1, which is what it says it is, to a positive exponential of about 0.3 to 0.4 of a growth rate. That would do well, and it would do great on controllers, but it would do, actually controllers would want a little more, but you know, at 0.3, 0.4, that's a great start. But it would do a nice average number for all your joystick controls, where Thrustmaster is a little positive, CH is a little more positive than Thrustmaster, Cytec is negative, is a bit negative. I don't remember where Logitech is, haven't ran one in many years, but But anywho, getting on positive would put CH pretty close, Thrustmaster pretty close. It would get SciTech at least in the ballpark. It would really help those guys, especially their finite aim. And, you know, since no controllers are the same input output, you know, that's physical throw also. All controllers have a different physical throw. But that would help the vast majority of them. So something to think about. You know, set a minimum amount. It needs to be very low as far as your angular velocity, your rotation, as it were, flight model, and look mechanic for aiming in the first person shooter or looking. You know, it's the look mechanic. Whether we're aiming with a gun or not, that's raw look mechanic in that. And I know this flight isn't, but same thing. And you know, just a start of a positive exponential growth curve on all the joystick inputs, and by joystick that means all the joysticks and all the gamepad, you know, all the controller types. About 0.3, 0.4, great starting place, and people can go up from there if they want, but that would make a huge impact. And we talked at length a bit at ESP and auto aim and all that, and I know you've got some great ideas with that, some things to do, but you know, just even short term, it cannot be as sensitive as it is now as it was quite a few patches ago. It's like the person adjusting it equated more with better. So, and it doesn't. It's not better. It's definitely gotten worse over time. It was bad to begin with, and then it got better and got into a nice usable state, kind of like how console games are, in that it's not all of the various auto aim systems, you know, slow down, the look deflection, all this, you know, they're not perfect on console, but you know, you take a game like Call of Duty, more often than not it'll help you. Same for Battlefield or Halo. More often than not it helps and hurts, but in this it hurts more often than it helps. It slows down too much, and it's abrupt. That's one thing I hate about the box mechanic around targets, is it's very abrupt. So you can find yourself on the edge and you can't bust through the edge of it and get in, because it's cutting your requested velocity down too far. It's taking too much of your request and putting it towards target. That can happen on the opposite, where you can't get back on a target for whatever reason. And in this game, you know, that it's in the center of the screen, which is great, but you know, what happens when I'm not aiming at the dead center? You know, like, I know I'm moving this with my mouse and I don't have any targets in here, so I can't bring up a lag pip or lead pip, but you know, say you're pulling G-force and right here is the edge of the box. Well, we'll say that right here is the edge of the box, and my pip is down here, and I'll pull up to get my pip on a target. We'll call that little red thing right there a target. I'll pull up. Well, guess what? You know, the way it's programmed, the box is up here. I'm not getting any ESP help. My pip is down here, so I'm aiming without ESP, whether it's on or off. Now let's say we're right here on the edge of a box. We'll say the edge of the box is right here, and my lag pip or lead pip is dancing right on the edge of the box. Well, I'm going from having ESP to not, to having it to not. And that's exactly what's causing the skating issue people have with joysticks, where their aim point continually skates away from them, be it a lead pip or a lag pip. You know, if it's a lag pip, you get on the target and you skate off, or you get near the target, you skate off. Lead pip, you dance around it a lot. And you know, that can be the player, by all means. The player's doing the wrong inputs or too late on the inputs, or absolutely common is they are ham-fisted and they are putting too much input. But at the same time, it's the ESP, okay? You're either dancing off of it because you're off of the box or on the edge of the box, or you can't get on the target because it's being too strong. Flat out, it's simply too strong in, you know, the major auto aim values. So something to think about. make that more progressive when you are in your auto aim box. I know we talked about this, but I feel like, I mean, we all know the box needs to be on the aim point and it needs to not be on the center of the screen. Okay, that has 100% got to happen, at least for flight. Now, for first-person shooter, absolutely, it can be the center of the screen so long as, you know, when you're aimed down the sight, you know, the sight, the pixel that's you know, being hit scanned, or that the sight is on if it's, you know, not hit scan, which I guess this isn't hit scan, you know, but as long as it's aligned to the center, that's fine. But for flight, it absolutely has to go with the lead pip or the lag pip. I would prefer maybe if it was more than one box and it stepped in value, or hopefully it was progressive. I'm not a fan of the box calyx. There are plenty of equations out there that will turn a box into an oval or an ellipse, and I wish you guys would do that just to smooth it out. You know, hitting the corner of the box, you know, that's one of those things that you do it once and it's just hard to tell. But you know, you get a really reflecting player that watches a lot of their own gameplay, a highly skilled player, you know, that's looking for, you know, I need to cut 5 deaths and gain 5 kills. You know, I need a 10 death kill swap every thousand kills and deaths I do. You know, it's a problem. You know, that's the kind of thing you need to cut out to be competitive. And that's the kind of stuff that sounds nitpicky, but you know, that's the kind of thing that, you know, helped Call of Duty 4 go from something that sold a few million titles to 33 million titles, you know, or 60 million titles, 100 million titles, is being really anal retentive, you know, to a point where, to that point, nobody else had been nearly as anal retentive as they were. So, and there's other games where you see the same kind of effect, where it really can make a big difference in sales. And obviously the flying mechanic and the look mechanic are both huge. You know, that's literally the output of what the player's requesting. So I know I said I was going to ramble, and I have definitely done a good job of rambling. One more thing about the whole auto aim thing, I wish it wasn't on the side as far as the flying. I wish it wasn't on the side at all. I wish it was based on the actual target itself and moved with the target and scaled with the size of the target. And you know, you guys are already doing a lot of that math. Hell, you're doing it for the CS system. You know, you're generating width and height in a box, and that's your CS rating. So I don't see why, I'm not saying you can't piggyback that, but I mean, you guys obviously are already doing that math, so do a little more. You know, do the same thing. Make that size the auto aim box. Turn the auto aim box / rectangle, turn it into an ellipse or an oval. You know, make it progressive from the outside to the inside. And if you can't make it progressive, you know, run more than one box. You know, have the first one, for instance, start at 25%, have one in the middle at 50%, and then have one, you know, almost the dead center of the target, have the son of a bitch act like a gravity well. Set it to 75%, so that if a joystick or gamepad user was ever able to skillfully get to the very middle of it, by God, it really wants to stay in the middle of it. You know, I think that would be an interesting thing to, and it might not work out, but I think that would be definitely worth the kind of time to try out. And really, like I said, I'd rather have progressive and have it be grossly exponential towards the center of it, the strength, or, you know, a pretty strong logarithmic curve, however you want to do it. You know, it's whatever makes sense. But I think it would be well worth pursuing. Anywho, that's plenty of rambling. I think we've shown that there are definite overshoot issues with the IFCS. There are definite issues with inputs cutting out. And I should add, this has been a well documented and not even put in JIRA. I asked a buddy, he looked, he couldn't find it. Player inputs dropping out, where it's not just what I've shown, which is pitch, roll, and yaw, where two of the three axes are spending a lot of time cut out. It happens with the firing at targets too. You'll be sitting firing at targets, your input will cut out. you'll have to let go of the button, pull it back down. And man, that is so annoying. It can cost you so many kills and consequently get you dead so many times. And for no reason. You know, I've the kind of person that has looked into it. Not heat related, not power related. You know, not a popping issue of any kind. Just happens. You know, not peripheral issue. It happens mouse, joystick. It happens with all the input devices. I mean, I can sit and watch with my CH Manager program if I'm holding the button down or not. I've had it cut out, look over, I'm still holding the button down, have to let off and pull it back. So but I'll stop there. You know, you have a great 4th of July weekend. Hope you can sort some of these things out or pass them on or throw them in Jira for somebody to look at it at a later date, because definite issues. I mean, you know, this isn't stuff in my head. I've been a pretty high level player in many games. I've dealt with a lot of balance stuff, dealt with look mechanics probably more than anybody on earth, even though in a slightly different go around than y'all are, but still, you know, I know what it takes to make it good. So, but anywho, see you, Calyx. You have a good 4th of July, man. Hope this helps.
I'll show you just sort of right here. We'll probably wind up drifting some at the top of this. Maybe not. A little bit. There's a problem with the flight model, and it's not the Gladius. The flight model, the physics is the IFCS, and I'll tell you why. This is what happens. So you've got this. Here, we'll even stop. So you've got this ship that, I mean, look how fast this thing strafes, and you know, strafing, that's all your thrusters. That's all your maneuver thrusters right there. This thing changes direction, you know, like a bat out of hell. Its acceleration's phenomenal, but if we're pitching and I get some yaw in it, the back end, it really slides out a lot, and it doesn't catch itself well. It's called overshoot. It overshoots a lot. It's a lot like the Cutlass. It roll, pitch, yaw. When you really get on it, it overshoots terribly. Right there, you can see I was drifting up, and that was actually a little overshoot. Drifting's good, but they need to do something with the overshoot. It's whoa. Hello, 5:30 in the morning. Anyway. But yeah, they gotta fix that, because it's not as bad in this, and I know they're really good pilots. Probably for the racers won't bother them, but if you are dogfighting, that is a horrible thing, because you know you're constantly lining up shots, and what happens every 5 seconds when you're turning, right? Or hell, even more than that. You're trying to bring your weapon to bear. You know, you're trying to line your shot up, but you're always drifting, or not drifting, but you're always overshooting. It's always going too far, always going too far. Never stops when you tell it to, and it's a big problem, dogfight. It's not a deal breaker, guys. Not a deal breaker, but you know, a little work to clean that up will go a long way on the base.